What's up, War Report family? It's your boy C Dub, and in today's show, we're going to be discussing two recent commitments in Auburn recruiting. Positive news after a disappointing week prior. We're going to discuss those commitments, what it means for the offensive line room in terms of recruiting that position. Also, in previewing the 2024 season, we're going to take a look at the linebacker room and give some of our thoughts about that position group going into the season in today's edition of the Weekend Tailgate.
This is the Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by Golden Cast Iron. C-Dub, I Joe, Be Will, by G. You are now listening to
Happy Sunday, everyone. I hope you have enjoyed or are enjoying your holiday weekend. You are watching the Weekend Tailgate. Please be sure to share this video, smash that like button, and subscribe if you are new to our channel. This show is brought to you, of course, by our show sponsor, Golden's Cast Iron. And one of the ways you can support the War Report is to support our sponsor. So head over to goldenscastiron.com/WR and use code Get Your Weight Up, where you can get 15% off of weights. If you're still trying to get your weight up or down for the summer, you can definitely stop by here and use that code to get you some weights for 15% off, or it's grilling season. So use code TWR to get $65 off of a fire pit or Kamado grill. Special thanks to Golden's Cast Iron for being a sponsor of the War Report over the years and helping us to bring you amazing content. And we appreciate you guys hanging out with us as well. Get a green name or gift a green name, and I can tell you exactly how to do that.
It's very simple. You click that join button if you want to get on board with Green Name. Green Name Game, man, we've been having a really good time with our office hours. I've been trying to do that at least once a week, so having good conversation with you all. Love it. And I have been dropping some more film, so I did a couple of film reviews for y'all last week. So if you are patrons, then you have two new film sessions, but all other members have at least one Rico Walker film session that we've got out there. And I will be dropping some more film sessions for y'all this coming week as time permits, but we'll at least get in another office hours. If you are a member and you want to gift a membership, somebody else can get a green name courtesy of you. And we appreciate that. That is a random thing from over there. The folks at YouTube decide that. We ain't got no decisions on or way to decide who gets those green names, but appreciate everybody who continues to gift. And check in with the guys with the network. A lot of great Auburn content coming out from the Auburn family, specifically here at the War Report Podcast Network. We are the Auburn Express, Uptempo Podcast, College Loop, Just a Sec Pod. We've been saying we're going to get that going again this summer, and I have been slacking on that. I'm going to try to get y'all some SEC at large content and thoughts coming up here very soon after SEC Media Day. So going into Media Days and afterwards, that's going to be my jump start for getting back into that pod content over there for y'all. So y'all stay tuned for that.
Well, listen, let's get into recruiting, Ike. It wasn't all good just a week ago. Hugh Freeze goes on vacation, and it seems like all hell broke loose in terms of recruiting. Auburn saw two decommitments, missed out on a few other guys who went elsewhere. But this week brought a change. Auburn picked up two commitments, one from three-star Hollis Davidson, the tight end, who was previously committed but decommitted so that he could take other visits. After taking in those visits, he realized that he, in fact, will be an Auburn Tiger. So he pledged his commitment back to Auburn. And just yesterday, three-star Jacobe Ward, inside offensive lineman of Benedictine, I hope I'm saying that right, military school, he just committed, and he's the fifth O-line commitment in the 2024 class. Just a reminder that Auburn last year signed three offensive linemen last year, and in Hugh Freeze's initial season or initial recruiting season, he picked up some linemen. It seems as though offensive tackle was a position that was much neglected over the past few years. It seems like we couldn't buy a tackle, right, figuratively and literally, right? And we got three committed now. two in last recruiting cycle. It seems like things have changed as it pertains to prioritizing the offensive line position. Granted, we're going to be losing some guys this year, so obviously they had to hit the recruiting trail hard. But talk about the fact that Auburn is actually going after offensive linemen and getting some of the guys that they're wanting on their board.
Yeah, listen, this is something that the last two coaching staffs didn't get right. Right, like the major failures I think for Auburn in recruiting had been the lack of talent or NFL caliber talent along the offensive line. And this is something that Coach Hugh Freeze came in and his staff decided was going to be a priority for them, is to revamp those rooms both along the offensive and defensive lines, and that's how you win in football in general, but specifically in the SEC. You have to be strong up front. You have to be good in the trenches, and they've made a good effort to that. Shout out to Coach Thornton, man. Coach Thornton has come in, and there have been a wide range of thoughts about his prowess and being able to get quality talent in here to Auburn, based upon what he was not able to do at Ole Miss as an offensive line coach. But he's done a good job of flipping that room 2 years consecutively, right? Like when
Portal and high school for sure.
yeah, when they got in here, the offensive line was a problem. Let's be clear, and I'm not going to go calling any names today of who I'm speaking of, but we watched the film together of the 2022 season, and we watched the turnstiles that were happening up there on that offensive line. And we watched quarterbacks and running backs not have the ability to even get started on plays, right? And it wasn't some phenomenal line last year, but you absolutely made improvements last year over what you had seen really for the last 3 or 4 years prior to that. So shout out to them for actually being able to go and accomplish that in a school, where it's not as if Auburn has some rich heritage of offensive line, right? Like there are some guys related to the league from the offensive line. And this is what gives me encouragement about the other positions that are coming into Auburn, is that you don't have the history of offensive line like an Oklahoma or a USC,
Wisconsin.
Like there's some schools, LSU, like Bama, right? Like that have been putting O linemen in the league consistently over the last 20 years, really, right? Like, and you can go back even further with that with some of these places. Auburn doesn't have that history, but you're seeing more and more talented guys get into the room. So you're putting yourself in a position to at least have a shot at it, right? When we go and look at the offensive line boards for next season, I expect a couple of guys from Auburn to be out there having the potential to get drafted this year. And that is it largely in part to this staff, because the guys who we would be having that conversation about were not recruited by anybody else. It's not like they've been here just sitting on the shelf and they got developed into that. No, they were either brought here from the transfer portal, or subsequently, when we're talking years into the future, are going to be freshman classes that were brought in here by Coach Hugh Freeze if they stick around. All right. So shout out to them for being able to do that. And they seem to be getting the quality to a better depth now.
And I like the fact too, that they're getting the guys that they want. I think that's been major when you consider what Thornton has been able to do. And again, a year ago, people were skeptical of Thornton because it seems like recruiting from the high school level was kind of slow as it pertains to the offensive line room. But it was taking Thornton time to build some of these relationships. Jacobe Ward is a prime example of that because he was targeted last year. And now we're starting to see the fruits of what Thornton has been able to do in terms of building relationships with offensive linemen. And again, it really is about relationships with offensive linemen. They start really early with some of these kids.
Right.
And so we're beginning to see Thornton begin to work some of his magic from a high school level. We saw it a year ago when what he was doing with the portal, bringing in some guys from group of 5 programs, JUCO. He was bringing in different guys to plug and play so that we can have guys ready to go come game time. Now you're bringing in some kids that are from the high school level that's going to have to get in your strength and conditioning program and really begin to develop. That's another thing, Ike, that we haven't seen a lot. When you talk about guys going to the league, we haven't seen kids come in, get through the strength and conditioning program, and in a year or two are ready to contribute. we've been primarily grabbing guys from either transfer portal elsewhere to come in and play. Just like the QB position, we want to see us bring in a kid from high school and they actually develop and be that offensive lineman who can get to the next level or be an all SEC offensive lineman, right? That's something that we need to see. It's good to see that we're seeing Thornton recruit and bring in guys and fill needs, because again, what I'm looking forward to seeing is that we're not asking interior linemen to go play tackle.
Right.
Hugh Freeze he's bringing in offensive tackles that they're natural at that position, and now they can play that position, right? So whenever we experience injuries moving forward, there's a guy who can step in who's a natural at that position.
Right.
That's something I'm looking forward to under this coaching staff as well. So again, this is a positive sign. I'm happy to see that we have offensive tackles, plural, Ike,
right,
in this recruiting cycle and in previous recruiting classes. So it's exciting to see. Hollis Davidson. Hollis Davidson was a tight end who reaffirmed his commitment. He is one of 2 tight ends committed for this class. What are your thoughts about the tight end position moving? This seems like another position group that will be in good hands, because this is again one of the type of tight ends that Hugh Freeze likes. A guy who can play out in the slot, a guy who can go catch passes, a guy who can play in the flat, whatever the case may be. What are your thoughts about the position group, the tight end position group under Hugh Freeze? Do you believe it's in good hands so far in terms of our recruiting, in terms of the talent we're bringing in?
Yeah, I definitely like the direction that it's moving. It's clear, like you said, that they're focusing on guys who can be pass catchers in the tight end room. We just did the film review, I believe Saturday. I posted the Rico Walker film review, and he's not your road graded guy who's gonna be out there, pancaking guys from the tight end position. He's a receiver, right? Like he's a big physical guy, and he doesn't mind taking contact and even dishing out contact. But he's not going to be the guy that is going to grade out as the best blocker in your pass catching core. And I'm assuming that that's kind of going to be the mold going forward. You look at Rivaldo Fairweather, really similar, right? Like Rivaldo's not a great blocker. He's a big physical guy, doesn't mind contact, but he's not a great blocker, not technically sound in that. And he's not out there just really walking guys to the sideline from the tight end position, but he absolutely is a weapon from the tight end position that you can move around to a lot of different spots and be able to affect the defenses in a lot of different ways with mismatches that he presents with just his size and his speed at that size. So you look at Rico Walker, very similar kind of guy. And the 2 guys that they've got, I think Ryan Gia is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. And then now Hollis Davidson, both of those guys kind of fit that same mold of guys who are going to be vertical threat. Well, not necessarily vertical, but pass catching threats from the tight end position. You can move them out to the slot and you can do some things offensively to get yourself some mismatches against a safety or a linebacker. And so that's kind of been the mold of what Coach Hugh Freeze has done throughout his career from that tight end position. It's been those guys who really are kind of hybrids. They're really big receivers. They're just another receiving threat, but they're in the tight end position, but they're big enough to be able to give you a good chip block or give you that presence in the interior of being able to block, but then you slide them out. So looking forward to seeing what they're going to be able to do with those guys coming up here into the future.
It's the month of July, Ike. Obviously, fall camp starts next month, but July is important from a recruiting standpoint because this is the month of Big Cat Weekend.
Yep.
That's obviously a big month, especially with this coaching staff here that is prioritized recruiting. Last year, Big Cat was a big deal. We got 2 major commitments that week, flipping Perry Thompson being one of those guys. So we expect to see some big news. Ant Robinson, appreciate you being here with us. He says we have a lot of recruits we are in the top 3 for. He believes that Big Cat will have 5 commitments. You have guys who are committing this month, as a matter of fact. One of them being Anquan Fegans, who Auburn is one of the favorites for. Juju Lewis has been said to actually be ready to close and shut down his recruitment getting into the season. He wants to focus on his senior year. So will Auburn be able to flip him? Will he remain committed to USC, or will Colorado sneak in there? That's something that remains to be seen. So this is an important month. What are your thoughts about this staff and their ability to really, when I say I use the term loosely, close, but it's not signing day.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts about this staff and their ability to really make inroads on some of the major recruits that we're in it for this month?
Yeah, this is going to be this is where Auburn's got to make ground for some of the bigger ones. The thing with Perry Thompson last year is there was a lot of smoke to that happening prior to Big Cat weekend, and there's a couple of people who are in very similar positions going into Big Cat, where it's like, uh, you could absolutely get this commitment coming up into this weekend, and it's always going to be a big recruiting weekend. And I think, just for the, pardon the pun, but for the splash of it all, because we remember Perry Thompson throwing Coach Hugh Freeze into the pool last year, but for the splash of it all, they kind of ask guys to wait to announce during that weekend so that they can make it a big thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes from this weekend as far as recruitment is concerned. And listen, there were a lot of guys who, well, not a lot, but there have been guys who have gone to Big Cat weekend and said, man, it was difficult for me to not just walk away and commit right then because of the atmosphere that's created by this coaching staff during that weekend. And that's Big Cats didn't start under Coach Hugh Freeze, but that is a return to what Big Cat weekend had been, where it's this major recruiting event. It's not just a time for you to come visit. This is when we're going to put our best foot forward, and we're going to make you feel like this is home. Yeah, you're going to walk away from Big Cat weekend saying, yeah, that's where I want to go play football. Not just, I got another opportunity to come visit and get some FaceTime with a couple of position group coaches. No, we're going to come in, and like you said, we're going to close the deal on a couple of guys, and they're going to walk away saying, Auburn's where I want to be playing football for the next, what's the catchphrase, or the phrase they always say, for the next 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 years, where I'll be playing my football. Like that's where you get those kind of statements coming out of. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what they're able to do this time around, because, Coach Hugh Freeze just said recently, he feels good about being able to close in the top 5 or close to it.
Close to it. Yeah. This is an important month.
Yeah. This is where you gotta have to, because I think now, even more so with the way that the recruiting windows are, and with early signing day really being the big signing day, a lot of these young men, they don't want to have to go into their senior season still having to deal with this stuff, because it was different when signing day was closer to the end of the year because football season was done. And though schools were still contacting you and you were still getting, recruited during that time, the pressure and the intensity from the schools wasn't as high because you weren't up against the window of early signing day. Right. And going into that senior season, you kind of just want to enjoy it. So a lot of them really want to make their decisions where they're going to be before football season starts this fall for them in high school of their senior year. And that means Big Cat is a really big day for Auburn, because that's going to be the last major opportunity that you're going to have for some of these guys before football season starts for them. Right. Because August, they're shutting it down. Right.
Some of these kids are competing for state championships, and so they really want to focus on winning in that regard and going out with a bang in high school. So yeah. Before they switch gears, you want to be the last impression on their mind.
Yep.
And one of the things that I like to, Ike, about what this coaching staff has done is they've put the big back in Big Cat. Like there are some big time players here, and those guys want to play with other big time players. So when you have a Perry Thompson throwing Hugh Freeze in the pool, and you have other guys who are there present. I think earlier that week, I think DeMarcus Riddick, who also was at Big Cat, committed leading up to that event. So when you got big names like that, and those guys talk to each other.
Malcolm Simmons committed during Big Cat, right? Like
those
big names dropping.
So when you have those guys, and these are players that you wouldn't mind playing with, you're seeing them there, and they are taking in Auburn, and they're realizing, hey, this really does feel like home. That is very infectious for other guys who perhaps may not have had Auburn as high as some other schools. it gives them something to think about, because not only can I enjoy an atmosphere like Auburn, be able to play in the SEC, but I'm playing with some really talented guys who are just as enthusiastic, if not more enthusiastic, about Auburn. So kudos to this coaching staff for making Big Cat really relevant again in terms of Auburn recruiting,
Right.
because it wasn't as relevant in years prior to this point. And last year was kind of a change. And so I expect to see more of the same this year with some really big names. And who knows, there may be some announcements that weekend. I'll be excited to see it. Hopefully that would they continue the tradition of throwing Hugh Freeze in the pool because he's flipped someone or got a major commitment. We'll definitely keep you locked there.
Yeah, I'm
Let's
definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that, like you said, 2 or 3 big names would be really great to see the commitment from. Again, I'm not like a major commitment guy. I'm more so a signing guy, but
Sure.
for momentum's sake, it's good to have the commitments happening because, you know, these young men want to go and stack the deck. They do. Like
Yeah.
this is the kind of situation where it's like, I don't want to be the guy to go try to turn the program around by myself. I need a bunch of other guys that I know are going to be there as well. So it's not that they don't want to compete against these big schools. They just want to know they're going to have some help when they get there. And it's not going to just be me trying to figure it out here. It's like, nah, we got a whole squad of folks that's going to pull up down there to the Plains this year. And we're going to be a problem when we're
Right.
there. So I'm hoping that this is like you said, a continued trajectory of classes that are going to be signing or commitments that are going to be made during Big Cat weekend to get you to this next realm or next tier that Auburn's trying to fight its way into.
And you said momentum. That's the word that I want to focus on, because you remember around this time a year ago, Cam Coleman committed out the blue to Texas A&M, and people were down. People just knew that he was going to commit to Auburn. But after Big Cat, it's almost as though people began to feel really optimistic about Cam Coleman, even though it appears as though he was heading to Texas A&M, because you were able to flip Perry Thompson, because you were able to get DeMarcus Riddick to flip from Georgia and commit to Auburn over Bama, right? Seeing that type of momentum gives you a lot of encouragement and hope that, hey, maybe we can finish outside the top 5 or in the top 5, right? Big Cat is almost kind of your rounding third getting into home stretch going into fall. So
Right.
if they're able to end the month of July achieving the goals that they've had set for this month, I like what Hugh Freeze is saying, and he feels confident that they can close to a top 5 class. He knows something that we don't. I look forward to seeing it all unfold.
Yeah, and I listen, to be clear, they were confident that they'd be able to get close to top 5 last year, right? Like you
Yeah.
remember, we caught up with them at Big Cat, and he was like, "Hey, man, top 5 is where they're trying to, what they're aiming for."
Yeah.
And they were really just one player signing that I think that they thought they had in the bag,
We're
so
down
to
to the
speak.
final. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're down bag literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it came down to like just getting that one guy that they thought they had closed, and it just didn't happen there at the end for them to be in the top 5. So
Yeah.
this year they're like, listen, man, we got to do what we got to do to get there. And I think that they realize kind of what game it is that they're playing now a little bit more than they realized last year. So I expect them to come in ready to get some guys to make those commitments and really solidify where this class is going to end up. I think it's going to be interesting though. Some of the guys sometimes feel deprioritized once you start really turning the pressure up on someone else. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see how some of the guys that are on this, that are currently in this commitment fold, how prioritized they still feel after seeing them go after some of these bigger names. And I think the biggest thing is going to be kind of who the quarterback is going to be in this class. If they take a QB, like how do you focus in on a guy without making this other guy feel neglected? Because if you swing and you miss, now you don't get either of them. And so
right.
It's going to be an interesting decision process coming down the wire for this staff on what direction they want to go with a couple of these commitments that they're trying to go after.
Wide receivers is an example of that, right? So once the picture becomes clear in terms of who the QB is going to be in this class, I think you're gonna you're it's going to be a clearer picture for your wide receivers. Like if you do get a Juju, obviously that changes some things for you
Right.
in terms of the recruit. So once that becomes once that becomes crystal clear, this coaching staff can really hit the ground running in some other position groups. Let's get to some of you guys' comments. JJ Brand says, appreciate the super chat. He says, y'all have got to see that AI country song about Aiden Holloway on Twitter. Have you seen it, Ike?
I saw someone tagged me on Twitter, but I have not had the opportunity to actually go look at it yet. So we'll see.
I'm going to go check it out. I'm pretty sure it's gold. JJ Brand comes back and says, tight end is critical in this offense. Glad we got him in reference to Hollis Davidson. Justin Thomas says Malik Autry. And I was actually thinking of Malik Autry when you was mentioning Ike about as we go after certain other guys. This was definitely one guy who came to mind. He mentions Justin Thomas says he's the most important player in this class, in my opinion. He is very important, especially seeing as though we lost Coleman.
Right.
He had decommitted. So, yes, Malik Autry becomes very, very important in that regard. Corey Dub says we need Jared Smith. I believe he is recruited to play the buck position or defensive end position, if I'm not mistaken. Need him to hit this month as well. Yeah, I think again, this is going to be a very important month for some of the big guys or big recruits. I think he's a top 10 player in the state of Alabama. Dangerous Dylan says, where do y'all think this class will end up? Top 5, top 10, or top 15? I know Freeze says top 5, but that's what the head coach is supposed to say. Well, listen, some coaches never said it, period.
Yeah.
They never talked. They never talked about aspirations. So it's cool to see Hugh Freeze, who does prioritize recruiting, says, hey, this is the goal, right? And yes, if you're going to speak on recruiting, yeah, you don't want to say, I don't think we're going to be top 5. But it's good to hear a coach actually say publicly, this is what we're going for. This is what we would like to be. So that's encouraging to hear.
They absolutely have a chance at top 5. Last year, I was saying top 15 is where I felt like the class would end. And I don't forget where we closed last season, 12 or something
8.
Like that? Or was it 8? Was it that
high? It was top 10. It was top
okay.
10.
This season, I think top 10 is where it will surely be. I have a hard time believing Auburn doesn't close within the top 10, but I think top 5 is absolutely within reach this year. It's really going to come down to a couple of those 5-star guys that you're going after, because you're in the 5-star battle with other teams that could potentially be in the top 5, right? So if they don't go to them and they do come to you, that tilts the balance in your favor as far as the recruiting rankings are going to go, right? So like Malik Autry is an example of that, of a guy who Ohio State and USC, I think, are the major suitors for him right now as far as places where he could flip his commitment to. And both of those teams would be vying in the top 10 area, right? So him going that direction and not towards Auburn changes the numbers, right? And so you got to make that up with some other 5 stars, etc. But I think top 10 I feel really good about top 10 based on where they are right now as far as number of recruits and how many I anticipate Auburn trying to take, right? They're still in the teens, and I think they're going to take in the mid-20s to high 20s, right? So if you add another 10 to 15 recruits onto where they are right now, just from a sheer numbers perspective, because you're going to take a bunch of high 3, 4 guys in that number, you'll get there in the top 10.
Right.
Top 5 means that of those 10 to 15 guys that you sign, 2 or 3 of them are 5 stars.
Right.
And so if you close out on 2 or 3 of those guys, there's a wide receiver or 2 that are out there that they're going after. There's a couple of defensive linemen they're going after. And of course, there's the quarterback position. If you can get 2 or all 3 of those, top 5.
Yeah. I mean, again, you got to win a KJ Bolden. You got to get a KJ Bolden.
Right. And that's who I was referring to last time. I think they thought they
fish.
had KJ in the bag last year, and it didn't happen. And so you put KJ Bolden in last year's class, it probably is a top 5 class.
Probably top 5. Yeah. So if you get Juju, you get the Cunningham kid out of Mississippi, you get another 5-star. Yes. Yes, but Auburn has positioned himself right now to be a good top 10 class with 16 commitments, and there's more on the way. Auburn is poised to end up in the top 10, hitting on some of those big, because this is big boy recruiting now, right?
Right.
So you're not going to know this until maybe signing day, when it goes down to the wire,
Right.
right? So this is big boy recruiting. So if you win some of those battles against some of the elite schools that tend to get these big players, that's going to ultimately determine that Auburn is top five, which means you have a top five recruiting staff for sure, if because of the fact that you're able to win your fair share of these battles, that goes down to the wire. So more to be seen on that. D Lev asked, "What's our latest ranking in recruiting?" Depends on the site that you're looking at. D Lev, I believe that On Three has us. We're right outside the top 10, depending on who you look at. On Three has us as 12th. 247 has us as 11th. We're right outside the top 10. The past two decommitments kicked us out of the top 10.
Right.
But again, Auburn is in it for a lot of big time recruits. So again, I expect this when the dust settles for us to be back in the top 10. Thomas Jones says prayers to the families of the players who lost their lives in the car wreck in Florida last night. Yes, I definitely have thoughts of prayers with the families of those affected by that tragic incident there. All right, we're going to pivot, get to discussing the linebacker position group. Definitely want to hear you guys' thoughts on that. You're watching the weekend tailgate. Please be sure to share this video, smash that like button, and subscribe if you're new to the. Come back and discuss linebackers.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelikaRageroom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
As always, thank you to the sponsors of the War Report. Thank you to those of you who continue to support us during these summer months with membership. I know there are a lot of people who enjoy the film sessions after the games are over with. And it's almost that time, man. We are getting dangerously close to the season. Go ahead and get your stuff ready for that, because we'll be doing some film previews for the season this year, a little bit different. I try to get into the film more and more every season, and we've done a lot of things on players, and we'll continue to do that during the off season, but we'll try to get some previews of some stuff that we could see in the upcoming season. So make sure you get that membership active so you can get access to that content. And thank you to those of you who gift memberships to other folks and let them be able to experience at least a month of that. I think August is going to be a big month for us to get some gifted memberships in here. So, y'all are out here like our pushers. Y'all give them that first hit for free, and then hopefully they get hooked and they want to continue to do that. So we appreciate y'all for being out there working the corner for us, making that happen. That reference could have gone a lot of places. Vintage 2298 is a great sponsor of the War Report. If you are somebody who enjoys getting out there on the grill, maybe you have a Golden's cast iron grill and you need protein to put out there on the grill, you can go to Vintage 2298 and go get some of that at the butcher shop. Or you're like me, you have zero desire to do any form of cooking, whether that is grilling or in the kitchen, and you just want somebody else to prepare your meal and you want to sit down for a nice meal in the Auburn area, that is a great place to pull up at 2298 East University Drive. So make sure that you guys go in there and support them if you're in the Auburn area. We definitely appreciate you guys doing that. And then once again, shout out to the network. Not pictured on here is the gaming channel. We got gaming content going up. Not Madden, but college football 25 right around the corner. We will have content for that in the very near future. So y'all make sure y'all tap in with us at TWR Gaming if you are into that sort of thing. We'll be doing a lot of things over there on that channel as well.
Ike, are you a gamer?
Not at all.
Okay.
I let B Will and Mike G handle gaming stuff. As far as the channel though, it's Blake, Dylan, and why am I having a brain fart right now? Dustin are the ones that are doing the gaming content over there.
I'm gonna have to check him out. And
I don't even have a
see what that-
console, bro.
Me either. Me either. I mean, I don't have time to do. You talk about throwing away money because it'll just sit. It'll sit and collect dust. All the things I got to do. It just an adult now, so, with a whole family.
Yeah,
you do stuff all day long.
I don't see like B Will is a gamer, but I don't even think he has time to play anymore now that he got 2 kids, bro. Like he didn't. When are you playing video?
Like the only way you're gonna start playing again is when they get into games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the only way you're gonna find your way back.
They want to sit and watch you play, or they want to play themselves. Otherwise, them first 7, 8 years.
No, you don't. There's plenty of other things to do than play games.
And that's no
sure.
slight to anybody who has
No slight.
that still plays video games.
The NCAA game looks amazing. That's why I asked you, because I was like, man, if I had the time.
Yeah, nah, man.
Yeah,
I'm not even really good at video games though, so I'm just like, you know what? I'll let other people.
Yeah. There's people who are there are people who are like beast at it. You know what I mean? Yeah, that
ain't me. Not
at all. For recreational purposes, right? Yeah. If I win, I win. If I lose, whatever. Let's talk linebacker position groups. We're going to get into previewing each position group, each room. And we want to talk about the linebackers. That's not the buck position. The buck position will be discussed with the defensive line, right? So we're talking strictly linebackers. Before we get into each individual like player and dive into it, your thoughts about this position group going into the season. What are your thoughts? How you feel about it? Do you feel good about it? Are there some concerns there? How are you feeling about linebackers in 2024?
This is the first season I've been able to say this in a while. I feel good about where Auburn is at linebacker going into this season.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure last year, but I was cautiously optimistic last year because I was like, okay, Austin Keys is coming in. I think he's going to be good, but I don't really know what else beside him. I wasn't as gung-ho about Larry Nixon as a lot of people were last year. I was like, oh, I think he's going to be okay. I think he'll be solid, but like, I don't feel like he's a game changer. And the revelation of Eugene Asante had not happened yet, right? So you're thinking, oh, it's going to be Wesley Steiner there. And you're just like, I don't know. And then, Robert Woodyard didn't look great in the spring. He looked slow. So I was like, I don't know, right? So like, I heard good things about Asante and his energy and all that, but I just didn't know what kind of player he was going to be. I expected him to pay more dividends that first year when he was here under coach.
Right.
And then it never happened on the field. So I'm like, what's the disconnect between this guy who's playing in Gene Chiswick's defense at North Carolina? And I'm like, okay, so I know he's got to at least have some defensive pedigree because Chiz don't play about defense, bro. So if he's coming out of a Chiz defense, he's got to be a player. So I'm thinking, all right, cool. But then he never sees the field that first year after he transfers. And I'm like, all right, is there something else going on here?
Going to hit the portal? Right. Yeah. I didn't know if he was going to hang around.
Yeah. So like, I didn't know what the deal was with Asante at that point in time. And so you're left with, again, Austin Keys, who had not played a lot at Ole Miss, but felt good about what his abilities were coming over from another SEC school, albeit broken ugly school. They're, still cool. He's there. He's able to play. And then you have Wesley Steiner, who, again, I wasn't very high on. So I'm just like, and then Cam Riley, who had been up and down in his career. You didn't really know. This is the first year I've had the ability to go into the season and say, I feel good about where Auburn is at linebacker. Right. Okay. And as far as concerns, the other side of that coin, Austin Keys has not been healthy a lot in his collegiate career, right? And so, good football player, can he stay healthy and stay on the field? Eugene Asante had a good season last year. Yeah. Had some issues with being out of position every now and then, and tackling at some points in time wasn't like his strongest situation in some of the open field situations. But he is a freaking laser targeted. Like when he's a missile when he is locked in, right? And so he's going to be a playmaker, I think, in this defense. And I love what DJ Durkin does with front seven and linebacker. So I'm expecting a lot from him this season to make his case for why he should be an NFL linebacker, because he has all of the tools that you want. He's got the right attitude. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. And I like the addition of Mousy, right? So I know we're going to get more into some of the names specifically, but I like the addition of him as a guy coming in as a senior. So I feel good. And then the young talent is good. You've got some young, talented guys that can come in and really give you, I think, some quality minutes this year. And I love Robert Woodyard. So I'm looking forward to seeing this room. I haven't been able to be excited about linebacker in a while, right? Because once you know, when you really understand defense, you realize good linebacker play is you don't have a good defense if you don't have good linebackers. You just don't. Like, unless you have absolute terrors along the defensive line, your defense is bad if you have bad linebackers.
Right.
So I feel good about where this linebacker room is going into this season, and looking forward to seeing them be able to go out there and play free and really impact some games for Auburn.
I'm where you were last year, Ike.
Cautious optimism.
I'm cautious optimism.
Okay.
It's hard for me to say I feel good. And listen, you got to feel good about returning 2 of your starters from last year.
For
right?
sure.
Right. These are some of your biggest contributors. Obviously, you had Asante, the leading tackler of last season. Austin Keys expected to be kind of the captain back there. So those 2 guys returning has to be positive, right? Mousy coming in. My question is, how good will Mousy be coming off the bench? And can those 2 guys stay healthy? Can Asante stay healthy? Can Key stay healthy? And if they're unable to stay healthy, how big is the drop off? Right.
True.
And I think this is a concern most teams have with their linebacker room. When your starters go out, how big is that drop off? Can Mousy come in and the production, you don't even realize anyone went out, right? He's a senior. He's played a lot of games, had a lot of snaps. Woodyard, is he ready? Right. He lost some weight, was moving around pretty well this spring. Again,
he looked like a safety out there, man.
Completely different Woodyard this spring compared to last spring. So there's some optimism there from me. I'm in wait and see mode with that room. Obviously, you got DJ Durkin coaching them up. He's done well with linebackers over the years. So they're in good hands. I'm just waiting to see it really come together this year with that room. You got some of the young guys out there. Again, that's the future, right?
This
DJ
is
Barber.
the linebacker room for you guys who want to take a look at that. Like I said, Austin Keys, senior, Eugene Asante, senior, returning. That's a good core. Right, like you said, in this defense, which is essentially 4-2-5. You got 2 guys there, Mike Will, linebackers that I think are a good core to be able to build around. And to your point, you added Mousy, who is a senior, played a lot of snaps at Duke, and I think he was a solid contributor on that team. I liked when I put his film on. I liked what I saw from him. And then you were just getting into it. DeMarcus Riddick, DJ Barber, the freshman in there. Both of those guys. DJ Barber is a football player, bro. Right? Like he is a ball player that I think he's
an under the radar guy who I think is really going to be good for this room.
He's of the mold of those guys that you just really want to just kind of have on your team, anchoring a defense that's going to be out there. He's a plugger. Like he's going to really be there on those 3rd and short, 4th and short situations, downhill, making football plays. I liked him. DeMarcus Riddick is just a physical freak all over the field. He reminds me a lot of, and I almost hate to say this because I was not the biggest fan of his production at Auburn. A lot of it had to do with injuries, but he reminds me a lot of Owen Papo, right? Just like physically, he's there. He's got all the stuff you need to be a dominant SEC linebacker, could really play safety with his build kind of guy, right? Yeah. He just needs to be able to have a little bit more contribution on a consistent basis. But again, Papo injuries had a lot to do with that. He was there during some of the worst coaching situations in Auburn, right? So a lot of turnover at a lot of the D coordinators during his time. So it's not all his fault, but but then you got, like I said, Robert Woodyard, who I love the transformation that he's done physically, and looking forward to seeing him be able to go out there and put in some quality snaps for this team.
Well, one of the things that, again, is another positive another positive. I'm in wait and see mode, but a positive is that you didn't lose a lot of production.
For
You
sure.
saw the list of who was gone. We can pull that back up again, Ike. I mean, you had Cam Riley, who actually transferred. I think he's at UCF now, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I don't remember where he
I
was
think
going
he
to.
may
He
be
was
at
going to
UC,
UNC. I mean, excuse me, he's going to NC State, and then
State.
he
I think he might be at UCF
yeah,
now.
that sounds about right.
Larry Nixon graduated. That may have been a lot of your production there from Larry Nixon. He did play quite a bit last
Mm-hmm.
year. Steiner transferred. Jake Levant graduated. Powell Gordon, I remember he was picked up through. He was picked up during the Harsin era
Mm-hmm.
and transferred. Rumored to come back, and I think he's now transferred again. So
Yeah, I don't even know if he ever actually came back. I didn't see him. Like he just kind of like disappeared into the ether. So I don't know what actually happened with Powell.
he was in a weird spot because he was kind of undersized to
Yeah.
play linebacker, or defensive end. It was weird. He was trying to find a spot for him was tough, and you're bringing in these guys, so he was going to get lost in the shuffle. But again, you're returning a lot of your production with Austin Keys and Eugene Asante there, so that is absolutely a good sign for this room. Again, you mentioned injuries. Again, you have to factor in the possibility of there being injuries. Who is the guy that you're looking from the bench to really have a big season this year, to be a contributor and add that much needed depth to that room, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, other than Mousy, who I think is going to be coming off the bench, I think he's going to be a guy that you can count on to know what's happening on the defense and be able to diagnose. Because things that you were talking about, the linebacker is really kind of, not kind of, is a quarterback out there, right? So you need to be able to know not just where you are supposed to be and where everybody else is supposed to be and how things are supposed to be happening within that front seven and getting people lined up. Mousy is a guy who can do that. He can get people where they need to be lined up. And I feel good about him being able to step in and be that Mike linebacker for the team. And then you got to look at Riddick and Woodyard as those next guys up that can give Eugene Asante a break out there, who can be downhill and speed. Because again, man, I cannot say enough how impressed I was with the way Robert Woodyard was moving around during the spring game.
It was encouraging.
He made one tackle. I don't even remember what running back it was out in space that he went and got. But I was just like, bro, who, like, in my mind, I'm like, who is this making this tackle? And when I saw the jersey number, I was like, whoa, wait, what? That can't be the same dude I saw struggling to get to a swing pass just, 10, 11 months ago. He was flying around out there, man. So the hype that he came in with, coupled with the new physique that he's out there flying around the field with, has me very excited about the prospects of Robert Woodyard.
Do you think he's just, I mean, we don't know, but do you speculate that maybe he just understands this system better and he's able to relax? Is it a year under his belt? Like, what do you think?
I mean, I know he had an injury coming out of high school, and that was kind of part of the reason why, he was not getting the considerations for scholarships from some places that he had once had in his junior season. And maybe it was just he wasn't healthy and he wasn't able to really get back into playing shape. And now that he's back in playing shape, he's back up to form. I don't know what the deal is, man. All I know is if he's as good as his junior season high school hype is, combined with that year of knowledge of just being a collegiate football player under his belt, he could be the next Eugene Asante for this defense, as a guy who just kind of out of nowhere pops up on the screen. Just every game you're seeing him make these physically wow plays where you're like, yo, this dude is flying out there. Yeah. That's the thing I love about Asante, man. Like, not just the enthusiasm and the less work and all this stuff. When bro puts his foot in the ground and gets to it, he is there. Like, and that's what I see. That's what I saw in Woodyard. Like, it's a drastic difference from what I've seen from him before. When he puts his foot in the ground and he gets to it, he's there and he's arriving with bad intentions. Love seeing that from linebackers, man. So he could be that next guy that's able to make that year over year leap physically and making those wow plays on the field.
Yeah. Again, health is a key here. If they're able to stay healthy, I'm excited. I will be excited. I think with us having 6 guys back there, and we saw how we kind of struggled at times with injuries last year from that room. Those guys got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
In year one of Durkin installing his defense for sure.
Yeah, health, to your point, I think is the biggest issue for this group. Asante didn't have a bunch of health concerns, but he was playing a lot of. He was looking winded out there in some games
Yeah.
because he was having to play a lot of snaps because of the lack of depth. And then, of course, Austin Keys was hurt for a large portion of the front half of the season, and so he wasn't able to really contribute a lot. And they don't play the same position, but like when you got to that next level. Man, listen, Nixon was hurt a lot last season, right, in his final season, so he wasn't out there able to be 100%. Cam Riley didn't really prove to be a reliable guy like you would want to. And then, listen, we've talked about it a lot. Wesley Steiner just wasn't there how he needed to be. And hopefully Washington State's a new start for him. He goes out there and he balls out at Wazoo and he's able to do his thing because physically he's a guy who he's got all the speed. He's got the ability to really like deliver as far as tackling. It's just he wasn't where he was supposed to be a lot. And he was missing tackles when he was getting to the spot that he was supposed to be. So hopefully these other guys that we're talking about, the DeMarcus Riddicks, the DJ Barbers, the Robert Woodyards, they'll be able to supply some additional depth in that linebacker room that will really allow that defensive front that I think is actually a little underrated going into this season. Now that I've looked at some tape on some guys, I'm like, defensive front could be very interesting as far as the depth is concerned.
Yeah.
If those linebackers are able to play with freedom, with the speed that they have as a group, right? Because that's a fast group. When you talk about Eugene Asante, Robert Woodyard, DeMarcus Riddick, that's a fast group of linebackers that are really out there.
They can cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, man. So if they're able, if they don't have to navigate offensive linemen because the defensive line is gobbling up blocks up front, or they're having to double team guys up front because guys are winning one-on-one too often, and those linebackers are able to just diagnose and get downhill, you could have a problem on your hands with Auburn's defense this coming season because, again, they have the physical ability to go and do it, right? Like it's not just, the opportunity presents itself, but I don't have the ability to get there. Now, these guys can get there, and they can get there in a hurry. So I'm looking forward to seeing the how successful that defensive line is going to determine how good these guys can be, though, because if they're able to free flow, they're going to be wrecking some game plans consistently.
Yeah, for sure. And you already mentioned DeMarcus Riddick as kind of the freshman that you expect to kind of contribute this year. Do you expect him to get his red shirt burned?
He was a guy I think that was on the fence for me. He was on the fence for me just because I like what I saw from Robert Woodyard that much that I thought maybe Riddick would be, I don't know, right? Like he might have to redshirt a season just because if Austin Keys stays healthy, he's gonna be on the field, right? Just because I think he's more of a quarterback on that defense. If Eugene Asante is healthy, he's going to be on the field. So when you rotate guys off, I think the next guys up are Mousy and Woodyard. And so I don't know where the snaps come in for Riddick, but from a talent perspective, I don't think that's going to be the issue. I think DeMarcus Riddick is ready to go right now and go out there and play. Yeah, I just think that the other guys have a little bit more on the field experience that might, and they're not lacking in talent either. So I think that they have the opportunity to play a little bit more.
Let's get to some of you guys' comments here. Eugenia says Ike watches other people play games. Thanks for the show.
Hey,
see y'all in a few months.
He's not lying though. I was telling them during office hours, man, like I would just like sit and watch B Will play video games. Like, because we will stay next door to me. I would just go over to his crib when we weren't doing that. I watch him, but I'm not gonna play. I suck. I'm like, all right, let y'all do
You
y'all
got
thing.
that. You got
Yeah,
that.
go ahead, handle it. I'm
Yeah, I
talking
would.
junk to people while they playing, like they playing each other in the game. Like, oh man, he killing you, bruh.
I stopped. I knew I was about to get done when I would go to Mike G's house and him and Deontay would be playing Halo. That was like the real popular game then. I was like, yeah, y'all got it. Y'all got it. That's when I started becoming that guy who watches other people play games.
Yeah, yeah.
Lawrence Robinson says we also lost Tolan that transferred in from
Yeah.
LSU. Yeah, we did. And that was disappointing because I was excited. Now, I was excited about him because he was being recruited by Auburn, I think the year prior, I think, Ike, and had some personal issues come up and left the team. So yeah, we lost him as well. I was excited to see. I think he was a bit undersized at the
Yeah,
time,
for sure.
so I was expecting for him to kind of go through the strength and conditioning program and to see what he would look like now, right? But yes, I remember Tolan coming in and we lost him. TK mentions that Riley was passed by new freshmen coming in and they wouldn't move him to edge. So FSU. So he's at FSU.
Okay.
He's with FSU. I knew it was some school in Florida. I thought it was UCF, but he's at FSU. Got it. Got it. Any other thoughts on this linebacker room, Ike? And anything that you're curious about? What DJ Durkin is going to do? How
Yeah.
is DJ Durkin with linebackers? Did he blitz them a lot? What does he tend to do with them?
Yeah. So I did a little bit of film review on Durkin's defense. If you guys are Green Name Gang, make sure you go and check some of that stuff out. There's a couple of different sessions on there. He's an aggressive guy. Like he's gonna zone blitz and he's gonna all out blitz and he's gonna bring linebackers. He's gonna bring a corner off the edge. DJ Durkin is going to put a lot of pressure on your offensive line to figure out who are the guys that are going to be applying pressure to this backfield, whether it is run blitz, QB blitz, whatever it's going to be. And so that's, again, I think that's why it's important to have guys who can move like these guys do, because Durkin's going to ask them to get upfield and cause havoc in the backfield. So yeah,
I liked Asante when he was being used to blitz.
Yeah,
I
think he's going to have a ton of opportunities this year to do that.
Yeah, he was a problem when he was bringing pressure on QB.
Ask Sam Jackson. Sam Jackson, super athletic quarterback. He wasn't able to get away from Asante on a few occasions. He was out there causing problems for that Cal offense when they went across the country to go play them. So, and this year, I expect Asante to take that next step. That's something we talked about before we got on here. Asante was the leading tackler on the team last year. Now, Austin Keys graded out the best of all the linebackers. It wasn't particularly close. Like, he was the best linebacker as far as PFF grade was concerned. But having both of those guys be healthy and playing out there was a marked difference in what this defense looked like when Austin Keys was on the field last year.
Agreed.
When Eugene Asante was on the field with him last year. So having both of those guys going into the season healthy, I think is going to be important for Auburn to be able to be the type of defense that Durkin is used to being able to have. Athletic linebackers that can fly around, that are going to be sure tacklers when you're getting downhill versus a running back. And, we'll get into the defensive line and how they play into that picture. But yeah, the way that he uses those linebackers, he's got the missiles in his arsenal to be able to do that kind of stuff.
Indeed. All right, I think that covers linebackers. We will cover a new position group in our next live, but tell the folks how they can get a green name or gift a green name to others.
Very simple. Hit that join button. Get on board with the War Report family Green Name Gang. We got more content coming your way. Make sure that you keep your notifications on, because you never know when I'm going to pop in with some more content for y'all. If you can membership gift. Somebody can get a free month of membership on you, and they'll be able to enjoy 1 month free of that Green Name Gang stuff. Didn't talk to them about them before, but make sure you hit up the folks at the Rogue Shop. RogueShop.com, using code REPORT, get you a little something off your purchase at America's #1 online dispensary. Appreciate you guys for continuing to support those guys and lock in with the network. The Auburn Express, Uptempo Podcast, College Loop, and Just a Sec Pods are all part of the War Report Podcast Network. A lot of great content coming from those guys in the network as well.
And before you get out of here, please be sure to share this video and smash the like button. Please subscribe if you're new to the channel. As always, guys, we're on social media, X, Instagram, at The War Report. We're even on TikTok at TW Report. That's it for now, guys, but we will catch you throughout the week. We'll be dropping little clips of this live video here. You'll catch us with the midweek report on Wednesday. We'll definitely be covering more position groups, discussing any Auburn news if necessary. Until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.